It was one of those summer Saturdays that made you feel lucky just to be alive. The sun was high, no clouds in sight, and a light breeze whispered through the trees behind my backyard. From my porch, I could see the lake glistening, not just any lake, but my lake. Willow Lake wasn't some shared community pond with a dozen houses around it. When I bought this property, I made sure the lake parcel was deeded directly to me. That little body of water was mine, legally and entirely. Fishing, canoeing, swimming, or just sitting by the dock with a cold drink. It was one of the main reasons I bought this house in the first place. But today, I wanted something different, a little thrill. I rolled my jet ski down from the garage, fired it up, and walked it to the water. A couple of birds flapped off from the reeds, startled by the engine noise, but otherwise all was calm. I didn't think twice about it. Why would I? This wasn't a public lake or an HOA-managed amenity. It was written into my deed as private property. I owned the lake bed and the water rights. If anyone had a problem with that, they'd have to take it up with county land records. The moment I hit the throttle, I felt that burst of freedom. The jet ski skimmed the surface, slicing through the glassy water like a blade. The wind hit my face. The spray hit my arms, and for a while, all the stress of the week disappeared. I looped around the center of the lake a few times, careful to keep a wide berth from the shore. The sun reflected off the water in 1,000 dancing shards of light, and for a moment, it felt like I was the only person in the world. But apparently, I wasn't. On one of my loops near the far edge of the lake, I caught sight of a few neighbors standing near the fence that separated my property from the back of the cul-de-sac. 3 of them, maybe 4, arms crossed. A couple holding their phones up, filming or calling, I couldn't tell. But I knew that look, disapproval, that HOA look. I cut the engine and coasted into my dock, tying off the jet ski before heading up to the yard. Before I even reached the back steps of my house, I heard it, the distant sound of sirens. Not full blaring, just the kind they use when they want to let you know they're nearby. Within a few minutes, a sheriff's cruiser rolled up to the curb out front. I didn't panic. If anything, I was confused, maybe even amused. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I hadn't even left my own property. Still, the sight of law enforcement pulling up to your house, lights flashing, neighbors peeking through blinds, is never a welcome one. I walked to the front yard just as the deputy stepped out of his vehicle, clipboard in hand, glancing around like he wasn't quite sure why he was there. He gave me a courteous nod, then said, "Afternoon, sir. Got a complaint from the HOA about someone using a jet ski on the community lake. They say it violates noise ordinances and HOA water use rules." I just stood there for a second, trying not to laugh. This was going to be interesting. I gestured toward the backyard. "You might want to see something," I said, because today the HOA picked the wrong guy and the wrong lake. The sheriff's deputy followed me down the stone path that wound from the side of the house to the backyard. His boots crunched lightly against the gravel, and he looked around, with mild curiosity as we passed the garden beds and tool shed. I could tell from the look on his face, this wasn't the kind of call he was used to. He probably expected some reckless teenager tearing up a public park or a noise complaint in a crowded subdivision. Not a single man on a jet ski, calmly, waiting next to a private lake in a quiet neighborhood. As we stepped into the backyard, the lake came into full view. Calm again. The engine was off. The water was still. The jet ski sat tied neatly to the small dock. The deputy paused for a moment and raised his eyebrows. "This is the lake they're talking about?" he asked, with a note of skepticism. "Yep," I said, walking over to a patio cabinet where I kept important documents. "And this is the part they didn't bother mentioning." I opened the waterproof case and pulled out the manila folder I kept ready for exactly this kind of situation. Inside was a copy of the deed, along with the land survey and legal descriptions. I handed it to him and let him read. He took his time, scanning the text, flipping through the pages slowly. After about a minute, he let out a short whistle and nodded. Well, this clears up a lot. I didn't say anything. I let the paperwork speak for itself. Lot 17, he read aloud, pointing to the section in bold print, includes full and sole ownership of the adjacent water body described as Willow Lake Parcel A. He looked back up at me. So this entire lake is yours? Exactly, I replied. It's not a community lake. It's not under HOA management. It's privately owned by me. The water, the lake bed, even the fish. The HOA doesn't control any of it. It was written into the deed when the property was developed. I paid for it, and I maintain it. They don't mow the grass, they don't clean it, and they sure as hell don't get to tell me what I can or can't do on it. The deputy gave a slow, thoughtful nod and then reached for his radio. He stepped away for a moment and reported back to dispatch, confirming that there was no violation. After a short conversation, he came back over, handed me my documents, and gave a quick grin. Well, looks like you're in the clear, he said. I'll file this as a false report. You didn't break any laws, and your paperwork's solid. If anything, it's probably the HOA that needs to back off. Appreciate it, I said. Sorry you had to waste your time. No trouble, he replied. You wouldn't believe how often this kind of thing happens. HOAs think they have more power than they actually do. He tipped his hat and made his way back toward his cruiser. I watched him drive off, then turned to look at the line of neighbors still standing by. The fence. Their faces were harder to read now. Less smug, more irritated. Probably frustrated that their little stunt didn't work. Probably already on the phone with the HOA board, trying to figure out what went wrong. But I knew what was going to happen next. They weren't going to back down. HOAs never do. Not when they're embarrassed. They'd poke and prod, look for loopholes, try to twist rules that didn't apply to begin with. But they didn't realize something crucial. This wasn't just about a jet ski anymore. Now it was about setting things straight,